Hello everyone, this is In-Depth Analysis by Arinze. In this video, we are going to talk in depth about the Houthis, why they are making headlines, and also why they are attracting US bombs. You see, the name Houthis or Houthi rebels was derived from their founder, Hussein Badreddin al-Houthi, from the Zaidi tribe, a branch that is different from the 12 Shia Islam that dominate practice in Iraq, Iran, and Lebanon. Zaidi took their name from Zaid ibn Ali, the great-grandson of Ali, who was killed in an uprising. Zaid is revered as a leader who fought against corrupt governments. The Zaidis believe it is their religious duty to fight unjust rulers, which is contrast to Sunni and Shia doctrines that encourages unity over disorder. Another notable thing you need to know about the current Yemen is that it used to be two countries for decades until the year 1990 when it was unified. You see, in 1990, when the northern and southern Yemen were unified into one country, a Zaidi became their president. His name was Ali Abdullah Saleh. When the two independent countries, North and South Yemen, merged, both had the expectations of being the dominant force within the unified Yemen. After a few years, the South, feeling they were being dominated by the North, sought to break away, which resulted to a civil war in 1994. As the civil war broke out, the tide was with the northern Yemen. There is another interesting theory. You see, Yemen is bordering Saudi Arabia to the north, and Saudi has been seeking to be the biggest player in the region, therefore seeking for ways to influence the Yemenis government. So when the civil war broke out, they saw it as a golden opportunity to influence the Yemenis government by supporting both sides of the war, switching sides depending on who is winning, in order to keep the country divided and curtailed. By the end of the war, the Saudi Arabian government has cemented their hold in the Yemenis government, and that is when the Houthis came into the picture. Before we continue, consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks. You see, why all these wars and instabilities were going on in Yemen, the Zaidis thought their president an authoritarian and corrupt leader, with Saudi Arabia influencing him and also their government too weak. They also felt marginalized by their government too. So they formed a group known as the Believing Youth. At first, they focused on rebuilding their Zaidi religious identity, hosting summer camps for young men, and offering religious education. That's when Hussein al-Houthi joined them. You see, al-Houthi used to be a member of the Yemen parliament, but he felt he couldn't do much impact there and despises their government. When he joined the newly formed group of Believing Youth, he transformed them into a kind of revolutionary group modeled after the one in Iran. He was seeking the Iran-like revolution, the one that kicks outsiders' influence and restores Islamic values. That's how they started a massive protest against their president, Ali Abdullah Saleh, taking up extra territories and setting up security checkpoints in their region. Things hit a point of no return in 2001 after 9/11 when the US launches war on terror. US asked President Abdullah Saleh for help in order to fight Al-Qaeda in Yemen, which he agreed, accepting foreign aids and allowing US special forces to operate in Yemen. More than a year later, US invades Iraq and occupies Iraq. Al-Houthi criticized the invasion and called it US imperialism. He used the opportunity to rally support and adopt a slogan in Houthi flag: "God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam." The growth and the influence of the movement made President Abdullah Saleh to feel threatened. He began crackdown on the protest and issued arrest and bounty on Hussein al-Houthi. This caused a fire exchange between the Yemeni government and the Believing Youth protest. Few days after the fight broke out, al-Houthi was killed in a cave in the north in 2004. Then his brother Abdul Malik al-Houthi took over. The rebel group started fighting with a new conviction, and that's how the world started calling them the Houthis. The clash between the Houthis and the Yemeni government continued. Saudi Arabia backed the Yemen government. Iran saw an opportunity to sponsor the Houthis in order to gain influence, which the Houthis accepted, but resisted direct interference of the Iranian regime. But Iran was okay to sponsor the counterforce of Saudi interests. The clash between the Houthis and the Yemen government, backed by Saudi Arabia forces, continued until 2010 when it died down due to some kind of agreement. But soonest in 2011, during the Arab Spring, the Houthis were among the first to hit the streets seeking to change their corrupt government. The Yemeni President Abdullah Saleh refused to step down, and the protests and the movement continued viciously. At some point in 2012, Saudi Arabia got worried and convinced the Yemeni president, with the help of the UN, to transfer power to his vice president, Mansur Hadi, in exchange for immunity from prosecution. He agreed and transferred power to another highly Saudi-influenced president, Mansur Hadi, taking billions of dollars he amassed during his time as president and returning most of the military area to him. The Houthis, who wanted overhaul of their government, refused the presidency of Mansur Hadi in the sense that they cannot sell dog and buy monkey. The fight between the Houthis and the Yemen central government continued. In fact, the Houthis became much stronger, taking advantage of the Yemeni government disorder and started grabbing territories rapidly. The former president Abdullah Saleh aligned with them. Soon after, the Houthis conquered Yemen capital Sana'a, capturing President Hadi and putting him to house arrest. But he escaped the capital to Aden, a city in the South Yemen, and had to flee from Aden to Saudi Arabia because the Houthis conquered Aden soon after. You might be wondering how they got so powerful to defeat their government backed by Saudi Arabia. Remember, they too were being supported by Iran, so they have access to drones and missiles. By 2015, they have conquered the capital of Yemen and the south, creating their own government, imposing strict Islamic rules, silencing free speech, banning the women to do absolutely nothing, and recruiting children as soldiers. Their neighbor to north, Saudi Arabia, weren't going to allow Iran's backed group to control Yemen. So in that same 2015, Saudi Arabia formed a coalition of Arab leagues and invades Yemen with a goal of removing the Houthis from power. The military coalition was led by Saudi Prince and Defense Minister then, Mohammed bin Salman. They started with a naval blockade and massive bombing of areas controlled by the Houthis indiscriminately, banging a lot of civilian casualties, most of their weapons coming from the US. In fact, Saudi Arabia became the highest importer of US weapons for the next 4 years of the war. Those events plunged the Yemen Houthis and Saudi Arabia coalition into a full-blown war. The war went on for years, with Saudi Arabia coalition committing a lot of war crimes by bombing indiscriminately with American weapons like the cluster bombs, a bomb considered illegal by many countries, and CCM, Convention on Cluster Munitions. A lot of civilians were killed, millions displaced multiple times. In fact, most people in Yemen had to survive by foreign humanitarian aids due to Saudi naval blockade. And the Houthis did not help matters too. Sometimes they invade into Saudi Arabian territory, attracting more severe bombs. They also began bombing Saudi Arabia cities, capital and airports. In 2017, cracks began to show in Saudi-led coalition. UAE, United Arab Emirates, pulled out of the Saudi-led coalition for the fact they felt it wasn't serving to their best interest anymore, and started supporting a group in the southern part of Yemen called Southern Transitional Council, or STC, and they started clashing with the central government and also the Houthis. The STC aren't aligned with the Houthis or central government of Yemen, recognized by the international community. They wanted their own country and government. Soon in 2019, STC took Aden, a major city in the southern part of Yemen. Before I forget, in 2018, tension had started to rise between the US and Saudi Arabia, and the US was threatening to stop all military assistance to Saudi Arabia in Yemen. The cause of the tension was the death of a Saudi and US-based journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in Saudi embassy in Turkey, where he came to collect a document ascertaining he is divorced in order to marry his Turkish fiancée. US believed Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was championing the Yemeni invasion, ordered his killing because of his critiques on Saudi Arabia's government policies and that of Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Amid all this, US did not stop military assistance to the Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia made amends with the UAE in order to join forces once again via STC and Yemen central government in order to combat and capitulate the Houthis. But it did not make much difference because the Houthis are now battle-hardened and are getting sophisticated weapons from Iran, In fact, they began bombing Saudi Arabia's oil facilities, threatening global price hike. The civil war that turned to regional conflict is now settling in an uncomfortable stalemate. In 2022, the UN brokered a ceasefire between the Houthis and Saudi-led coalition. The last question is now, why are they attracting US bombs? Well, in October 7, 2023, Hamas launched massive surprise attack against Israel, killing and kidnapping lots of Israelis. As we all know, the Israelis, they don't take such attack lightly. So they launched a retaliatory attack on Gaza, vowing to destroy Hamas by any means and bring back the hostages Hamas took. The war between Israel and Hamas led to deaths of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza, which then provoked a response from Iran's axis of resistance, which the Houthis is one of them. The Houthis, in order to show their solidarity with the Gaza, started attacking southern Israel with drones and missiles. From there, they escalated the attack in merchant ships passing through the Red Sea, tied to Israel and the West, vowing not to stop until the Israeli invasion of Gaza stops, disrupting a major shipping lane in the Red Sea, where 25% of merchant ships travels. That's when the US started getting involved directly with the Houthis. The US formed a coalition with the UK and other Europeans and started shooting down the Houthis' drones and missiles, also striking some targets in the Houthi-controlled area in Yemen. The clash stopped when the US brokered a ceasefire between the Israel and Hamas, because during the ceasefire, Houthis stopped attacking merchant ships and Israel. But on 18th of March 2025, Israel launched a surprise airstrikes on Gaza, marking the end of the ceasefire. The Houthis once again renewed their solidarity and started attacking Israel and merchant ships. But now the US has a new president who is not having it. The US new president Donald Trump now orders a new bombing campaign against the Houthis, also threatening to bomb Iran, Houthis' major backer. Well, that's all I have for now. This is in-depth analysis by Houthis. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.